Nissan invited us to be one of the first people to drive the 2016 Maxima. It's rainy, it's a little bit chilly, but we're gonna make the best of it. The Maxima comes in 5 trim levels: S, SV, SL, SR, and Platinum. The bottom being the S, starting at $32,410, and the Platinum being at the top, starting at almost $40,000. Each car has a set of options that is specific to that trim level, and there's no optioning out anything. So let's talk about design and style inside and out. During the presentation, the Nissan reps told us they went to the Blue Angels Naval Air Station to get ideas of what it feels like to be in a jet fighter cockpit. I love that cockpit feel of just like, you are the driver and this is where you do the driving. There's been a lot of inspiration from the Nissan GTR. We have a flat bottom steering wheel, we have actual white stitching, and there's white stitching throughout the car. You can get stitching in different colors depending on how you have your interior set up, but these are real stitches. They're not plastic molded stitches as Nissan representatives told us. The center stack is tilted 7 degrees more towards the driver, so the driver has easier access to all the buttons. Everything is well within reach. On the outside, if you look at the front of the car, the lines coming up from underneath the emblem, the aluminum trim piece, goes up onto the hood and has really strong lines. On the shoulders and on the side, you see a lot of sharp cuts and edges. When they first came out with the initial concept for the new Maxima, a lot of people loved it. They were like, this looks great, but they had to ask the serious question of how much of this is actually going to make it to the real production car. And believe it or not, a lot of it made it, especially the floating roofline. They have black A, B, and C pillars, and only the top of the roof is painted the body color. So it looks like it's floating, sort of like the cockpit of a fighter jet. I think that's a really nice touch. I'm a big fan of that. Nissan redesigning the Ford DSC, or four-door sports car, for 2016 made a lot of major improvements. Let's talk about the engine first. It's a brand new 3.5-liter V6. Now, what's brand new? 60% of the internal parts have been revamped to up the horsepower to 300 and putting out 261 pound-feet of torque. It's still made it to a CVT called the Xtronic CVT, which has also been redesigned. They got an independent performance testing company to take the new Maxima, a 3 Series, an A4, and an Acura TLX, which all are classed above this car, to button willow and see who would have the best track time. Guess who came out on top with a full second ahead? The Maxima. However, if you are into sports cars, engaging the vehicle in shifting is an important part of the experience. Now, I've been driving in automatic mode. I put it in sport, and when I revved the engine up and I started pushing the pedal a little bit harder, it had the feeling of shift changes. Now, that's a programming feature that Nissan included in the new Maxima to give the driver that experience of being in a sports car and shifting gears. Is it gimmicky? You have to look at it as sort of the spirit of the vehicle. In keeping with that spirit, I'm all for that fake gear change simulation that they put in the CVT transmission. And of course, it has the fake manual mode where you can simulate shifting gears. So the Nissan Maxima offers a bunch of options in the segment that no one else even has as an option, period. And one of those are the panoramic sunroofs, which when I hear panoramic, I feel like the whole roof is glass. However, in the Maxima, it's not. You have a center crossbar. And I understand the reason for that. You don't want to lose that handling ability because you have a massive pane of glass, reducing the structural rigidity of the car. And that, in turn, reduces the fun driving factor. As we're driving up the highway, I can tell that this car is refined enough to be a comfortable long-distance driver, an excellent commuter car, and when you really stomp on it, oh yeah. Right now we're in sport mode, which basically gives us instant power and pipes in a little bit of the extra natural engine sound. This is not like the four-cylinder Mustang, which sort of makes up for the lack of growl from the four-cylinder by digitally recreating aggressive noises. Nissan has included a lot of cool safety features in the new Maxima. One of them is predictive forward collision warning. Now, this is how they claim it works for you. Say you're on the highway and you're driving and there's a vehicle in front of you, and in front of that vehicle is another vehicle. And the system can measure both cars. So if the car in the very front slams on its brakes, the car already knows that's happening and starts to prevent that collision by hitting the brakes for you as well. Nissan introduced another system in terms of comfort where the rear brakes are applied as you're going over a hump or slamming on the brakes a little too hard. What it does is it compensates for the nose dip by applying rear brake pressure ever so slightly to redistribute the weight so it keeps the car as level as possible. Now that I've been gushing about the car, of course there's going to be a few things that I'm not a fan of, and I'm sure you won't be a fan of either. One of the things is the whole infotainment system is a little bit sluggish, just a touch. I think the seats could be a little more supportive. I feel kind of flat in these. I love the zero-G seating, which basically makes you feel like you're floating on air a little bit. But for a sports car, I feel as though it needs to be just a touch more aggressive. The CVT, as great and as efficient as it is, you get 22 city, 30 miles highway per gallon. I feel like if you have a sports car, it should have a traditional transmission, at least an automatic with paddle shifters. You have the Nissan GTR that has a traditional transmission. You should probably offer the same. Maybe have the S model with, the CVT, but the SR, the sport model, you definitely need to put in maybe a 6-speed, a 7-speed, and even consider a manual. I think you'll really have a game changer if you throw in a traditional transmission. People will be excited not to have to deal with a CVT. It kind of takes away from that sportiness. I know you have it tuned in such a way that is sporty, aggressive, and fun, but you show up to, like, say you're a young guy and you go to a car meet, everyone's there with their Audis or BMWs, their even, non-luxury sports cars, and they're driving 6-speed manuals, or they're driving 6-speed automatics with paddle shifters, DSGs, like in the Volkswagen GTI. And then there you show up with a CVT. You're going to get ragged on. No offense. They're not going to rag on the owner, but they're going to rag on you guys, Just think about it. With all that said, they look like they designed this car and it is their car. You will not mistake the Maxima for anything else. So now, with having such an eclectic design, I think it was really appropriate for Nissan to sort of debut the driving side of this car in New York City. Because when you're standing next to the car outside and you look up at the skyline, you see a mix of the old and the new, and you see all the new designs and all the new cool architecture. And, the car just looks great. It really does. I think they nailed it in terms of design. It really looks aggressive. It looks sporty. And to call it a four-door sports car, it's earned it. It really has earned it. And there you have it. Overall, I'm a big fan of the new Maxima. I like the way it looks, I like the way it drives, and I think it's a really good car for the money. If you're interested in getting one, you can do that today, June 3rd, or yesterday if you're watching this tomorrow, or whenever you watch this. It's now out. You can go buy it. But that about does it for this episode of Fast Lane Daily. I'm Tom Albrecht, and thanks for watching our first drive of the Nissan Maxima. So, full disclosure, I got a little caught up in the moment of talking about the car and totally missed where we had to go. Now, let's have a little fun catching up to him.